my son was born with spina bifida. He was in a wheelchair his whole life. But he had a very full life. So he went to school. He was in a special education class, and I did as many activities with him, with other people as possible. So my son loved it. So Brandon got sick on a Thursday at school, and they told me that he had a fever, so someone had to come pick him up. So my mom picked him up. So he was home on Thursday. He was home on Friday. Saturday and Sunday he was home with me, but Sunday I thought he was getting better, so I'm like, you're going back to school tomorrow. You're good. You're going back to school tomorrow. He was eating better, everything. So I thought it was like, because it was February, so I thought it was just a winter cold. So Sunday night he says to me, Mom, I'm really tired. Will you help me get into bed? He had a little trouble transferring from his wheelchair to the bed, so I helped him get into bed. I fluffed up the pillows. I said, do you want to watch TV? He says, yeah. So I gave him his clicker. He was watching TV in his bedroom. I was using the computer. And about 2 hours later, I heard a noise coming from his bedroom. And I went into his bedroom, and he was unresponsive. And that had never happened before. So I took the pillow out from under his head, because I know CPR. But he was breathing, but it was just a funny noise. And so I tilted his head back so he could get as much air as possible. I yelled for his brother to call an ambulance, that his brother was something. And so Brian called for an ambulance, and then I told him to wait outside for the ambulance to come. So we drive, the ambulance drives, and I drive behind the ambulance to get to the hospital. And I get to the hospital, and they won't let me in the emergency doors because I didn't ride the ambulance. So I run around to the front of the building, and I get in there, and I'm like, my son's in the ER. They wouldn't let me back. So I was frantic. So I'm pacing, and I'm like, listen, you have to let me back. Listen, when they've got your son all cleaned up. I said, I don't care what he looks like. He can't tell you the medications that he takes. He can't tell you if he's ever had a seizure, but let me back there. And they wouldn't let me back there, and they wouldn't let me back there. And then someone finally came up and said, did you know that your son had pneumonia? And I said, no, I didn't know that. I said, can I go back there now? She's like, well, we're not quite done. And but she said we suctioned a lot of phlegm and stuff out of his throat. And I was like, oh yes, is he awake? And she's like, no, he's not awake yet. I'm like, all right, are you doing something to wake him up? And she says, we're doing everything we can. Someone will come and get you in a little bit. Again, I'm pacing, and I'm demanding, and they're not letting me. And so finally, someone else came out of the ER area, and I jumped up from where I was sitting, and I went through the door before it closed, because the door was locked. So now I'm storming down the hall, and I finally get to the nurse's station or whatever, and there's a doctor sitting there. And he says, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I'm Brandon Baker's mom. Where is he? And he's like, oh, he didn't know what to say. And then he says, he's over here. And I said, okay. And he was intubated. And so I'm talking to him, and I'm rubbing his head, and he says, Mrs. Baker, I need to tell you that this is really bad. And I said, what do you mean it's really bad? Well, your son stopped breathing for a period of time, and then I couldn't hear anything else. And so I looked at him and I said, please transfer him to Children's, because that's where he has had surgeries before. They have all of his medical records there. They know what to do. My son has spina bifida. He has a shunt. Maybe it's a shunt problem. They'll know what to do. Please transfer him there. So we prayed, and then we waited, and then they said, we're ready. So we go back. Brandon's dad is there with me. We're divorced. Brandon's dad is there with me at the time. And so we go back, and the doctor looked at us and said, we're really sorry, but your son's never going to wake up. And I was like, what? And he says, he stopped breathing for a period, probably when he was at home with you. And then the noise you heard was him trying to start breathing again, but he hasn't gotten enough oxygen, and his brain swelled. So I'm standing there next to Brandon's bed, and I looked at the nurse next to me, and I said, I need a piece of paper and a pen. And so she got it for me. And I wrote down, when the time comes, we will donate his organs. And I handed it to her. And I signed my name and handed it to her. And she grabbed my hand and she read it. And then she showed it to Brandon's dad because I didn't show it to him. And not because I was trying to be mean, just because I knew that the hospital would be the one to take care of it. And she showed it to Lance, and Lance is like, yeah, we'll do that. And we all went back to the hospital. And then that's when they told us that he wasn't brain dead. So there was still some neurological activity that prevented him from being declared brain dead. I don't actually remember which functions they told me he still had. So we waited for 2 days for to see if Brandon would become brain dead. And then I just couldn't take it anymore. Then I went and got Darlene, and I said, I'm really sorry that we can't do this, because I thought you could only do it if he was brain dead, do donation. I said, I'm really sorry that we can't do this, but I said, I can't stay at the hospital. I can't let them keep poking him, you know. And then they explained to me about DCD, which is donation after cardiac death, and so they wouldn't be able to donate all of his organs, but they could try to place some of his organs. So we said okay, and then he went to the OR that night, and we donated his kidneys and his liver and his corneas, and he also had tissue donations, so he had skin and bone and muscles and tendons.